business launch alongside a job, from between commuting, working, personal life. It can seem pretty impossible to start a business as well. So many aspiring entrepreneurs are experiencing burnout, and many are not able to fulfill their potential. Clearly, the frameworks that we're working in are unsustainable and need changing for this trend. So, what does this all have to do with newcomer talent? How are people with a lived experience of migration well equipped for this trend? That's exactly what we're going to show you tonight with Catalyst Talks. So, what do we mean by Catalyst Talks? Why do we use the word catalyst to describe newcomers? Well, we believe that catalysts are the key drivers of innovation in host societies. They are the catalysts for sustainable change. At Place Network, we work directly with catalysts and host societies to create spaces for meaningful collaboration. We do this through training programs, innovative learning experiences, and matching catalysts with people and opportunities in various sectors. So, our mission is to shift the narrative that migration is a burden to a unique asset for Europe. Tonight, you're going to hear from 2 Place alumni tell us their journeys and narratives. Not only that, but you are also going to get to dive a bit deeper into the topics and themes uncovered during the Catalyst Talks with your peers in the audience. But before we get into all of that, I would love to welcome onto the stage Alon Rosen, who is the Dean of Ecole Ponts Business School and Advisory Board Member at Place Network.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Hello, everyone. Actually, I have like a theme, let's say, for my short talk. It'll be about stories. So a first story is just about the school, Ecole des Ponts Business School. It was founded in 1987 by newcomer talent. So an Argentinian woman, it's important, was in France and was working as the head of international relations for the Ecole des Ponts. And because she was an outsider, she was looking at what the Ecole des Ponts was doing. You know, this is the oldest civil engineering school in the planet, male-dominated. And she says, guys, you're training talent, and you think they're training them to be engineers, but they're all ending up being managers and leaders of organizations, only you haven't taught them anything about management, leadership, and business. What you need is a business school. And because she came in, and by then she spoke French and she had this idea, but she came in with her outsider perspective. She was able to see the engineering school in the proper light. She was able to shine a light back onto the engineering school and say, guys, what you need today is a business school. And she was able to convince them. And that's why we're hosting you tonight, thanks to Dame Celia Russo, who used that kind of newcomer side of things as a superpower to get a very conservative school to take a quite innovative leap forward. And we were one of the first business schools in Paris, especially one of the first MBAs after INSEAD, which was actually quite a feat. The next story will be mine. I've been newcomer talent twice probably in my life. So the first time when I was 15, my parents decided to move us from Los Angeles to Israel. So I showed up first day in high school. I did not speak a word of Hebrew. And I went from being like the first in the class to being completely lost in a cloud where every once in a while the word would pierce my understanding. I say, oh, I know that word. And so really had to adapt, had to figure out the language, had to figure out how this education system worked compared to the previous one that I had already figured out. And it took me a while, but at the end, I did figure that out. Fast forward a few years later, and I was studying in the US, and I got a little bit bored, and I said, I'm going to try the European experience. So without speaking French, I moved to Paris and started studying economics at the Sorbonne, which when I first did it, I was like, this is really courageous. I'm going to go to this new country. I'm going to conquer France in French. And then when I got here, I was like, oh shit, maybe I confused courage and stupidity because I don't get this country whatsoever. So just to give you an example, I came to the Sorbonne on day one, and I realized that there was, and so I asked for help. The head of the student association helped me get my student card and sign up. And then she said, oh, you need to go see the head of the foreign student office. It's like, oh, wow, there's a foreign student office. Great. And I go and, I knock on the door. I hear, come in, in a French. Open the door. There's a tiny office, but really long. And at the end, there's a big desk. The guy sitting behind an old school phone. And he's like, yes. And I sit down. And I tried to explain that I'm a student. I'm trying to get started. What do I need to do? And he says, well, the first thing you need to do is you need to get a student card. And I was like, do I understand French? Am I not understand? Like, I think I have one. Is this what you're talking about? And he looks at the card, he looks at me, and he picks up the phone, he dials, I don't know what, he calls, he's like, hangs up the phone, he's like, get out. Like, what? Get out of here. Like, that was my welcome to France moment. And I was like, oh shit, this is not how it was in the United States. Like, the welcoming committee is definitely not welcoming. And so the whole time I had to figure out the French system. And again, I was used to being a good student. I think the first grade I got was on a math test at the Sorbonne. I got a 3 out of 20. I was like, I didn't even know that could exist on an exam. And I went to the professor. I said, why? I have all the answers right. Why did I get a 3? He's like, you wrote in pencil. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, we don't write in pencil here. It's like, but all the answers are correct. He's like, how do I know you didn't just change them all now since it's written in pencil? It's like, because you had the test in your hands before you gave it back to me. And he was like, nope, sorry, you don't write in pencil in France. 3. I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with this country? Anyway, so there were so many things that I discovered here that were so different from the way I did things. The professors are not here to be your friends. They're here to fail you. At the Sorbonne, there's too many students. They have to go from 2,000 in year 1 to 600 in year 2. So they basically want you to fail. They want as many students to fail so that, they have less students in year 2. Completely different than the approach in the US, where everybody wants to be your friends. They invite you out for beers. Like they're actually interested in their students. They like them. Here, it was like a hostile environment. But I had as I was an outsider, which was really interesting, was I just started to say hi to everybody. Smile and say hello was my kind of approach. And that included the professors, the teachers' assistants, and the students. And after a while, people were starting to ask, like, why does everybody know you? Like, are you like a VIP? Like, everybody in the cohort. Everybody says hi to you. All the teachers say hi when they walk into the amphitheater. Like, they wave to me. Like, and like, what's the deal? I was like, I'm just smiling and saying hello to people. And what I discovered was like the French students only said hello to people that they knew from high school. They came to the university, they knew like 4 or 5 people, they would only stay with those 4 or 5 people, and they would never say hello to anybody else. Like, from thinking they were xenophobic, I realized they were just introverted and kind of shy in social things. And my American nature of just saying hi to everybody and going up and shaking people's hands was like a superpower. And so this is something that, is happened after, and kind of try to connect this to Jocelyn's introduction is like, then I went to, while I was at the university, I was working because I didn't have my parents to pay. So, I guess a lot of people have that when they come to France. Rent is really expensive. Apartments are tiny, trying to, just get to the end of the month is a real challenge. So I had to work full time while I was studying full time, which, doesn't usually add up because nobody has two full times to give. But that's something I had to do. But I discovered that because I was doing so much work on the side, I had to be very efficient when I was at university. So I had to understand exactly what the professor was saying. I took notes very carefully, and I wouldn't leave until I understood what they were teaching. All the rest of the French were just taking dictation from the professors. They weren't actually taking notes. So at the end, I would have 1 page of notes, and all of my French friends would have 30 pages of notes. And I would say, well, wait a second, why did she just say this? The professor, she just said the opposite thing 30 seconds ago. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody was actually listening to the professors except for me, because I knew I couldn't study later on. And so this is a pattern that I saw happening all the time, was like, the French have one way of doing things, and having this outsider kind of a different view on things is really like a superpower. You can live it as some kind of inferiority complex or something, like feeling like an outsider, but actually it gives you a way of looking at the system and saying, why the hell are they doing that? Doesn't make any sense. The professor starts talking and all the hands in the amphitheater start writing. The professor pauses, everybody stops. It's like a seismograph. And well, I would only take notes if there was something interesting. And so it was, this kind of approach that I think all of us here maybe have this feeling is, and it's not specific to being here in France, but, in France maybe in particular, but being a newcomer and having your own story about that can be very empowering. You can feel very lost, and it can be lonely at times, but you can also understand that you have something that nobody else has, is a much more objective view, whether it's on academia, on business, on anything else. And maybe just to wrap the whole thing up, is another thing that I had to do was do a lot of odd jobs on the way to where I am today. And so, the entrepreneurship and business connection here, again, like, I think you're much more willing to get down and get dirty and do what you need to do in order to pay the rent, finish the month, have a little bit of money to go out to dinner every once in a while, while you're also maybe developing an entrepreneurship project on the side, trying to get something that might turn into a real thing over time. And this is something that I did a couple of times. And luckily, I always had this approach of doing something on the side. I was a translator. I became a professor to teach. I was teaching in English initially. And so ways to make money while I developed a startup on the side. I did a few projects and all of them died miserably. So luckily, I'd never gone all in, so that I didn't find myself in failed startup and no money and no kind of way to get back. So that's something that I think is really helped me, is always having this kind of insider-outsider perspective of trying to do what you need to do to kind of fit into the more conventional French way of doing things, while still doing things that really corresponded to who I am. And so basically, that's kind of what I would suggest, is to find your own story. Today, the story was more about newcomer talent, but I'm able to adapt my story based on the objective of the context. And so it's the same thing for you. Like, do you want to tell your own story about resiliency, or is it about adaptability, or is it about succeeding against all odds? One of the beautiful things when you are a newcomer is you have that liberty to shape the story as it fits your needs and adapt it to context. So that could be a job interview, or it could be talking to people, or just trying to figure out next steps. But having a story, sharing your story is really something that I think can empower you, just also by the way that you translate your own experience to yourself. And so it's something that's nice to put on paper, to practice, and to shape according to need. And one of the things I like with what a place is doing is it helps you shape those stories. And they're all unique and they're all fascinating. And I can't wait to hear a couple more this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alon, so much. I really loved your idea that it's, uniqueness is a superpower. So I'm going to use that in the future. Thank you. So we're going to move on to our first Catalyst talk of the evening. And our first speaker joined Place in 2020 when we were first going online, thanks to COVID-19. She's had an incredible journey since Place, with Place, and before Place. So I'm really, really excited for you guys to hear her story. Unfortunately, she can't be with us in person, but she is going to be joining us on the big screen behind us. So I'm going to let the tech team do their thing. But can we please welcome Caryarit?
Thank you, Jocelyn. Do you guys hear me? All right, perfect. I heard a yes over there at some point. Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you, Alon, for such inspiring words. And good evening, everyone. I am deeply sorry to not be physically there with you tonight due to some last-minute health constraints. Still, I could not miss this opportunity to be with you, at least virtually, to be part of this wonderful event and to go on a ride together. So let's go. I want to start with a very simple question. And as I cannot see you, unfortunately, I will need to hear you say it out loud, your response. So the question is, who here enjoys roller coasters? I need some miss. Okay, perfect. So I could hear you guys. I love that some of you like and love roller coasters. On the other side, I know some people find them scary, and I can absolutely understand them. But I must admit, myself, I'm obsessed with roller coasters. This feeling of freedom to scream at the top of your lungs, the air on your face, the hair going all over, the amazing views that you get when you're at the top, and this free falling void you feel right in your stomach when you are going down. Of course, the big adrenaline rush that makes you want to do it all over. All of these big thrill sensations make me a true fan of roller coasters, and I could hear some of you being fan as well. However, let's be honest. Going on a theme park ride for less than a minute is not the same as going on an emotional, situational, and even financial roller coaster for months or even years. So I am here to talk about the joy, the fear, and the thrills of going on the most significant roller coasters that we will ride in our lives, migrating to and are working in France. So before getting into the details of this ride, I want to officially introduce myself and give you some context about how I arrived in France. I am Caryarit. I am from Venezuela, which is a beautiful country located in South America between Brazil, Guyana, and Colombia. For those of you who may not know, Venezuela has been suffering crisis after crisis since 2014 in every possible way, political, economic, social, basic service crisis, and so on. So this very complex context caught the attention of Fondation Montpellier Business School pour l'égalité des chances. This is a foundation from a French business school that seeks to grant a full coverage scholarship for a master's in management degree. But it's only for one student living in a country with an ongoing crisis. So they selected Venezuela in 2018 but the scholarship, as I said, was meant only for one student in a national competition. To give you some context, we are 30 million people in Venezuela. So my chances to win this scholarship were almost unattainable. Still, I applied with a strong drive to either get the scholarship or get the experience of applying to a scholarship, which I would use later until I finally got one. Spoiler alert, after a few months of preparing myself and going through all the steps into the recruitment process, I won the scholarship. So you can picture me. It was the beginning of September 2018. I was a recently graduated engineer. I was at the airport, ready to take my plane to come to France. And all the excitement, but also the fear of the unexpected started, which is a bit familiar to that feeling when you are queuing to go on a roller coaster ride and you look up and you see all these people screaming like crazy, like for their lives. And you ask yourself, am I sure I want to do this? Am I sure I'm made for this type of big sensation? Or maybe it's still not too late to run away. So I decided to step into this ride despite the fears and anxiety that I started to have. And as I was in this airplane to come to France, I got the same feeling of being at the top of a roller coaster. I was appreciating the view, literally. I was trying to find the Eiffel Tower as I was in the window. I was taking it all in. But deep inside, I also knew there was a big drop about to come, which was linked to all the obstacles that one can face when we're migrating for the first time. We have not speaking the language, of course, not having any friends or any family, not knowing, in my case, how a four-season weather would affect my Caribbean soul, who was only used to having summer all year, and even to the point of not knowing how I would manage to open a bank account or get my social security number, because I had been told people in France don't necessarily appreciate the English, right? I think this might feel familiar with some of you. So despite all this anxiety that I was having and all the questionings in my head, I decided I was going to own and grasp this big drop. And I was not going to let it overshadow the joy and the thrill of my ride that I had worked so hard for. So I was arriving in France with a strong sense of responsibility to represent Venezuela, and with a major gratitude towards Fondation Montpellier Business School. So this made me work even harder during my master's to prove to myself that I had talent and that I deserved a place in this country. I managed to open my bank account. I managed to learn some French, to make some friends, and to get my social security number. So by the end of the master's, I had worked so hard that I also had the opportunity to do an enriching end of studies internship at L'Oréal here in Paris. And I was named the top student of my class for 2 years in a row. We were a cohort of over 1,000 students from multiple nationalities. I was the only Venezuelan, and I managed to be the valedictorian of my master's. So again, I felt right at the top of the roller coaster. Little did I know, or little did I imagine, that the next big drop was going to be the size of a pandemic. We might as well have lived this long and certainly scary drop together, trying to find a job in the middle of a worldwide health and economic crisis in 2020. On top of the fear of the uncertainty of a pandemic and living abroad while all of this was going on, I had anxiety even of going outside for groceries. I was also facing the fact that my student visa was coming to an end, that my savings wouldn't last long, and that I had already applied to so many jobs, but there were basically no opportunities for migrants in France with junior profiles. This time, I wasn't really enjoying the feeling of the drop and the void so much. I actually was feeling trapped, desperate. And what was previously exciting for me, this time was feeling more like vertigo. Thankfully, as in any good roller coaster, After a down, you get an up. And in my case, my next wonderful up was in September 2020 when I was reached via LinkedIn by a catalyst from Place concerning the opportunity to win a scholarship for the Certificate in Innovation and Technology Management, the CITM program of 2020. And then I applied with a strong willingness to continue to upskill myself. And I managed to get a place. So this is a pun intended. I got a place in place at this innovative program designed for migrant talents. So I remember very well that we had to meet via Zoom calls as we were still in lockdown, which made me crave, of course, for this inhuman in-person interaction, but knowing that I had this group of people going through a similar experience than me, with very rich stories and backgrounds, it kept me going. As I was still learning to navigate the new context of my ride, I decided to try to give some direction to it. And I realized during this very complicated context, it demanded me to create opportunities for myself that were not initially there. Thanks to CITM, I was able to extend my student visa for 6 more months. And thanks to still being a student, I could join L'Oreal for a second internship. But this was not part of the CITM curricula or program at all. So I had to knock on some doors and to make this happen. And I want to give a shout out and a big, big thank you to Alon, Rose, and present here, and to Sarah, who are present and who helped me get the paperwork sorted out for me to join L'Oreal for a second time, thanks to CITM, to Place, and to Ecole de Ponts Business School. So all these obstacles that I was able to overcome by that time, the new skills that I acquired made me a much stronger candidate. And I had proven to be resilient, to be creative, responsible, and flexible. And only 3 months into my second internship in L'Oreal, I was already interviewing for a CDI. As soon as I finished my 6-month period of internship, I officially started my CDI as an international content manager for the brand Mixa. And the up, again, was quite high. After having navigated long periods of fear and uncertainty, I was enjoying the view like never before. So almost 3 years have passed since my initial role in Mixa, where my resilience proved to be one of my most valuable soft skills. My team underwent different types of transformation, organizational, but also at brand level. And I had to go obstacle after obstacle, keeping my head high, often being the team player who drove others to bounce back with a smile on my face and a positive mindset. After we have gone through so many ups and downs in life to get where we want to be, we learn that the smaller bumps in life are just part of the journey, but they are not the big picture. So transmitting that to our teams is often very valuable. Now, in the present, fast forward, I'm moving on to new adventures inside L'Oreal. I recently learned that I got a promotion to be Global Innovation Manager in Garnier Fructis. So I will be working in the category of hair care. And I was chosen for this role besides the performance in the company because of the richness in my profile in terms of diversity and international background. To launch products that will be used in America, but also Europe, but also Asia, you are often required to have a broad international background and be creative and flexible. So as migrants, the resilience that we build, the openness to adapt, the rich cultural backgrounds, the drive to overcome obstacles and find solutions, all of this is a true gem for any corporation or entrepreneurial project that we embark on. But one thing is certain, none of this would be possible without our friends and our families. As in any roller coaster in life, what lets us enjoy the ride is the security system. Is the reassurance that we will not fall out of our seats or cause any harm to ourselves. Same happens in the roller coasters of life. Our friends and family are our support, our guidance and our safety nets. They let us enjoy the ride while having our backs. They are the reason we can go up and down and knowing it will all be okay. I certainly have had my family and friends back home, but the friends I've met here in the last 6 years that I've been in France are the ones who've been present during very difficult and very joyful moments. So I want to invite you to go out there, make some French friends or international friends living in France just like you, grow your network stronger, and never leave this safety net behind. Nurture it and reinforce it and value it. Finally, I would like to wrap up by telling you, Catalysts, sponsors, educators, and everyone present, whether it is by welcoming newcomers in French corporations, or joining one migrant, or starting an entrepreneurship project in France, I want you to dare to enjoy your ride. You will learn, you will grow, and you will definitely enjoy the views. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Caryarit, so much. I'm so glad that you were able to join us at distance. So, up next, we have our second Catalyst speaker of the evening. He joined us in one of our very first programs back in 2017 when Place was starting as an experiment. And he obviously liked us so much that he's stuck with us since then and has facilitated on programs ever since. And I'm very excited for you guys to hear his story. So please welcome up Karam.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karam, and I've been a newcomer my entire life. I first started relocating at a very young age. I was about 5 years old when we moved as a family from Sudan to the United Arab Emirates. My father got a job offer in Dubai, and he took the chance to seek better life opportunities for us. Beside his job in sales, he was also interested in real estate and trade. He'd take me with him to car dealerships on weekends, and we'd meticulously look at cars to buy. And I'd ask, why are we buying one when we already have one? And he'd explain to me that we're actually going to resell it to make profit because cars in Dubai are cheaper than cars in Sudan. He'd then go and negotiate relentlessly like any Arabic father would do until he get the best deal, and we'd go home happily about it. My father was not only a salesman, but also an entrepreneur. He explained to me that with the money we're going to make from selling cars, instead of depositing them in the bank, we're actually going to reinvest them in properties in developing areas and then sell them again in the future to make profit and finance other projects. And that's how I was introduced to the mindset of business and the power of investment over time. Back then, I was in secondary school, and we were still living in Dubai. And just like us, many other families moved from the UAE to Dubai to have better life opportunities and better education for their kids. And that allowed me to develop good intercultural skills and learn diversity from a young age, thanks to my friends and colleagues from school. Excuse me. I enjoyed celebrating with them their private occasions, and I also enjoyed celebrating with them other occasions and having food with them. And after high school, I moved back to Sudan. After secondary school, I moved back to Sudan for high school, which ended very fast, and I was now ready for university. Luckily for me, the economy was still very good at that time, so I decided to pursue a degree in software engineering abroad. And that's how I chose Malaysia to do my studies. For those of you who know Malaysia, it's a very diverse country with the Malays, Chinese, and Indians living together as one nation. It's also an international business hub that attracts many people, and especially expats who are looking for new opportunities. Everything was going good for me during university until the separation of South Sudan in 2011, when the economy of Sudan started to become really bad, and soon the money my parents used to send me would lose its value, and I had to find for alternative ways to make money. I worked in restaurants for a while, but I found out that it was not reliable, and I was looking for better opportunities. Luckily, there's a strong tourism business happening in Malaysia, and I knew few people working in the domain. So my entrepreneurial instinct kicked in, and I decided to take a chance. With a friend of mine, we rented a car and we contacted many tourism agencies, letting them know that we're ready to work. And soon jobs started coming in. We understood the business model and we even made our own clients. And then we soon created our own packages and we started selling them alongside with hotel reservations on a commission base. That eventually helped us to get through university and make enough money. And of course, I did not forget about my studies. I was doing classes at the same time, and I managed to do my internship as a software developer in Malaysia. Malaysia was a great chapter in my life because it allowed me to have my first corporate and entrepreneurial experience. This came with a valuable set of skills, such as learning how to be independent, creating your own opportunities, and creating partnerships and building trust. Fast forward, 5 years later, at the age of 21, I graduated from Malaysia and I went back to Sudan. At that time, my father had developed a real estate business, and I was also starting my first job in Sudan as a technical customer support. So while doing my job, I was helping my father manage his business in real estate, and I carried out many renovation jobs such as plumbing, doing the walls, and negotiation with so many other people. I was responsible of the whole process, from planning to budgeting till execution and reporting. This experience gave me a great exposure about project management. I kept on doing this for 2 years until in 2016, I couldn't stay in Sudan anymore, and I found myself in France. And as you know, I've had some pretty serious experiences so far, so I thought I was prepared. But little that I knew that France was a completely different opportunity for me with a different level of difficulties that I was not ready at that time. I know it was not going to be easy, but I was having only one goal in mind, which is to move forward. Now stay with me, because this is going to be a real domino effect of opportunities. I started looking around for things to do, but I quickly realized that without speaking French, I wouldn't be able to do anything. And going to French courses was not an option for me because I had no income at that time. So I started volunteering for associations in order for me to learn French. And through volunteering, I managed to get my first scholarship at UPEC Université that allowed me to study French as a full-time program from 9 to 5. But it was still not enough to speak French. So I took extra classes at night 3 times per week, and I did both courses simultaneously until I got enough level in French, which allowed me to apply to the master's program in embedded systems and networking. And through this program, I managed to finish my master's, and which was, by the way, on alternance sandwich course. And that came with another difficulty, which was finding a job that goes with the master's. And thanks to my volunteer network, I was able to find a job that went along with my master's, and that's how I got my first professional experience in France. One day, I stumbled upon a post online that said, "Would you like to create something interesting and fun?" I was like, of course I do. So I took my chance and I applied. And that post was placed, by the way. It was a great opportunity for me to learn about businesses in entrepreneurship as a newcomer in France. It was with a unique experience in a form of innovation labs that allowed people to create businesses. As a catalyst, I enjoyed participating at Place Labs because it reminded me a lot of the experiences I used to have with my father and the ones that I had in Malaysia. I enjoyed it so much that I became a Place facilitator and I coached newcomers through their learning experience. Also through Place, I met Ecole de Ponts. And this meeting later on turned to be an opportunity for me to learn about business in an academical approach. After a lifetime of experimenting business and entrepreneurship, I was finally able to see it through an academical lens. It's been over 7 years now that I've been actively a member of Place, and I'm thankful for that because it brought a lot of value to me. Another great occasion that happened to me was when I found out about the program Ecole by Singa. It's a program that helps newcomers who are seeking for homes, and it matches them with French families who are willing to host. And like I always do, I took a chance and I applied. And that's how I got matched with the wonderful Fatoumata and Gilles Babinet, who are also entrepreneurs, by the way. And we ended up living together for almost 3 years. This encounter gave me exactly the stability I needed at that time for me to move forward. And it also gave me a second family in France. And today we're still very good friends. In 2020, with my master's in hand, I joined Octo Technology as a software developer, which is a great place to work. I learned a lot about programming and software craftsmanship, as well as working in teams with the agility to move forward and to create quality code. It's been over 3 years now that I've been working with Octo, and I aspire to continue and excel more and more in that domain. Because I took my chances, I was able to be part in many different experiences in life. Some of them was experimental and educational, but I continued to be an entrepreneur, with some projects failing and others succeeding. And today, I managed to get into real estate here in Paris. Why? I think I might just have been born into it. Throughout my life, I've created an extensive network of amazing people that without them today, my journey of entrepreneurship and corporate life would have never been the same. I was mentored by them in different stages, and I'm very happy to be able to give back today. That was my story. I've been a newcomer my entire life. I've been taking chances my entire life because for me, immigration and opportunity come hand in hand. And today, with over 7 million newcomers in France, imagine the amount of opportunities that arise. So like I always say, wherever you are and wherever who you are, take your chances. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karam. So you've been sat listening for a while, and I hope you've been inspired, you feel connected. But we're now going to shift gear, and we're going to go into another part, more interactive part of the evening, roundtable discussions. So there are some rooms around the space. There's some upstairs, some downstairs. That correspond with the color on your name tag that we gave you at the beginning of the evening. So in these rooms, you're going to dive a bit deeper into, the themes and the topics uncovered during the evening so far. And we have some incredible facilitators joining you in those rooms. If you want to wave your hands. Woohoo! So these lovely women are from the current catalysts in our business and entrepreneurship program, Fast Forward. So I'm sure they will tell you more about it if you would like to know. But we are now going to move to those rooms, and we're going to put all the colors in the same room. So like all oranges together, all red together, all blue. No. It's orange, green, blue, I believe. We're going to put you all together in the same room, and we're going to talk about a specific theme that you will find out once you get into that room. So if we could move to the next slide. Voila, you can see. Upstairs, we have oranges and blues, and downstairs, we have greens. So not sure how to do this bit. I guess greens can follow me down here, and we'll go into the room just round this way at the back. And reds and blues, if you follow upstairs, you will find someone who will be able to guide you there. There's lots of place people around and lots of facilitators around. But please enjoy yourselves. We will come back afterwards for some networking, nibbles, and drinks afterwards. Thank you.